So we're here in a collaborative podcast between Hair in Motion and 101. This will be on the Hair in Motion platform, but it will also be on our podcast platforms, so Unlimited. So the name of our podcast is Unlimited. And the reason we've called it that is because we want to share different insights and different perspectives with people around how they can live a bit more of a unlimited life, a life without limits, in a sense. And as we just briefly spoke about, Charlie, there's very few people in the hair industry who do live that life without limits, and you are one of them. And you're one of the people who's helped us on our journey to becoming more unlimited as well. So I think it's an absolute honour and pleasure.
That's beautiful.
To be here with you today.
Likewise, man.
I think, 3-4 years down the line since we did that mentorship program of yours. And that was really the catalyst, I think, for me in my, I guess, personal development journey. It was one of the first things that I embarked on in taking this whole thing a little bit more serious. Beyond just, let's get better at doing another fade or let's do some graduation.
It is interesting you say that, because I look back at it now when I did that program, and like it was kind of almost a bit ahead of its time, right? Like, you know, I'm not really doing anything like that anymore either, just because it's not like where my focus is. At the time it was, and I wanted to do that. But there's a lot more of that now, is what I'm saying. And, you know, like way better versions of that, you know, like the next level up, you know, like definitely what you guys do is like, you know, on that path, but like different at the same time. But like, you know, there's other like mentorship programs out there now by a lot of other companies, and I think like, God, maybe I was a bit too early on that one, which you kind of can be, right? But people do ask me sometimes, like, should I do the mentorship again? I'm just like, I just haven't got it in me, man. I don't know why. It's just not there, you know. And I don't want to do something unless it's like what I want to focus on right now. So, but it's interesting to say that. So it's cool to be a part of your early journey and where you've got to now, which is great.
Yeah, it was a really great moment in time for us, I think, when we did that. I think we kind of got a lot of confirmational moments from you and a bit of reassurance, and you gave us the confidence to kind of go ahead and push for that space in Australia. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we were both just talking off camera about like how we have no clients to our names now. And like that was the start of that journey. Like from there it was like, okay, now I can actually start to like taper myself off the floor and move more into the education space full time. And we only really know what we want by throwing spaghetti at the wall, right? Like for you, like that was throwing spaghetti at the wall. Maybe that's something you didn't really want at that time. And then life gets in the way, you know. You have a fantastic online education platform. You do what you do. You have a family. I would imagine you can't do everything. So you have to choose, what one am I going to take? So yeah, Hair in Motion, it's really taken off since I remember one time in Australia years ago, we were at Hair Expo and we were at an after party, and I remember speaking to you, and yeah, no, this is where it's going to go.
I remember that. I do remember that after party.
Yes.
Well, most of it.
Sure.
It was terrible. The reason why I remember it is because I had a seminar the next day at Area, and it wasn't the wisest decision of my life, that's for sure. I can't say I've done that many times.
Yeah. I remember speaking to you then, and I reckon Hair in Motion was like a concept that you had then. And at that after party, whether you remember it or not, I just remember saying something to you like, I'm going to do something, like, you've got something in mind that you're thinking about, and this is going to be pretty cool and pretty big.
It's funny you say that, because that trip was actually the confirmation that I knew I wanted to leave my previous company. Like many people know me from Menspire and stuff, you know, I did like a lot there, achieved so much, and became an amazing educator and built a brand up, my personal brand there, and everything was great. But you know, there comes a point, so many people, you know, in so many people's lives where they reach a limit, and it's difficult for them to grow and reach their potential, maybe underneath someone else or a company that isn't allowing them to grow fully or become what they want to become. So I think after 6 years of being at that company, I knew it was my time to like change path, you know, and go on my own. So, but when I was in Australia, there was a couple of different incidents out there that just made me realize that like, this is like the end of, for me, you know, and like, it wasn't soon. It was like 2 months after that, I told Josh that I was leaving and doing my own thing. So I think Hair in Motion was like on the cusp of being created at that moment in time. And that last trip to Australia there was like the nail in the coffin for me with what I was doing there. So yeah, it's interesting.
It's huge. I feel like we were chatting a bit about this on the drive here, and like, you left at such a moment, didn't you? And we look at that like, wow, what courage that like might have taken or might not have taken. But my kind of question around that is like, did you have any guidance around those decisions, or were you just like so driven and have that courage naturally? Or were there like, any kind of people helping you in that?
I wouldn't say I had anyone helping me. It was definitely something that was like just so what felt right at that moment in time. You know, it was nothing more, nothing less than like, I know I needed to do it for like deep down internally. Like, it's what I felt for a long time. Probably like a good year before I did it, it was like building, you know, and out of respect and love and joy and how hard I was working at my previous company, I continued to do that for about a year. But it was just the right time, you know, for me to leave. And my partner Tori, she's always been good at giving me advice, whether it's advice that I want to hear or not hear. She's very honest, brutally honest, you know. And I think you need someone in your life that is that, whether that's your partner, whether that's a friend, your mum or your dad or anyone in your life, right? It could be a business coach or anyone. You need someone to tell you how it is and give you their honest opinion, looking from the out, you know, looking from the inside.
That's what I was going to say, like a non-biased view, right? Like, because if you ask someone inside the industry at that moment in time, a lot of people would have told you you're mad, right? They would have been like, nah, don't leave, like big brand, big company, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I found that really interesting, that kind of vision, because that's hard to develop, I feel, to stay true to like your path and your heart and think, no, this is the time.
For sure, man. I think in any decision that I'm sure all of us have made here, that you have to take risks. You have to take risks in life, right? So, you know, I think some risks can be more dangerous than others, but I think as long as you calculate them properly and you do your due diligence and your research and you prepare yourself in the best way possible, risks are a good thing. You know, risks are a good thing. It's not about staying comfy, is it? You know, I think for the people that are afraid of taking risks will continue to do the same thing over and over again and repeat a cycle in their life where they just stay in the same position, right? Cutting the same clients, doing the same haircuts and just complaining about life, you know? And that's never been me, not even in the hair industry, like outside of the hair industry. You know, I've always been very competitive. I've always wanted to be the best at what I do. Because I grew up in a family of brothers and, you know, there was a lot of competitiveness there and it's kind of like wired into me. And I definitely think that you can learn to be like that if you want to be like that. But some people are just, from their upbringing, are wired like that for one reason or another, right?
We use a great equation as well. Like, you know, I love the topic of risk because something that we learned from one of our coaches is risk is available at all times on both sides of the scale. So for me, the way I look at it is like, if I don't do anything now, that's also a risk because I can risk either staying the same or going backwards. That's a risk. Or the risk of the unknown of moving forward. There's risk on both sides. You just got to choose your risk. And I love what you said there. You can learn the skill of re-establishing your relationship with risk and the fear of like the unknown. One of the only constants ever is the unknown. We don't know. Like the faster we can get used to the fact that we don't know, the faster we can just get on with things. And I think that reframe is so powerful for people. And we've had to do it and we help people with it. And the risk is available equally on both ends. And I love that. And something that we help our clients with as well is like, yes, it could go catastrophically wrong, but what if it goes really right? It's a 50-50. Like, and I know where I like to sit. I like to sit in the what if this is going to go really right? Because that could also happen too. And then I think walking the world with that kind of attitude, it just the world just looks different to you. It's like you're looking for opportunity all the time. What if that goes really right? What if that went really right? You know, which is really cool. But it's such a hard thing to develop, right?
It is. It's just a mindset, you know. It's what mindset do you have? Do you have an optimistic or do you have a pessimistic mindset on things? You know, is your cup half full or half empty? It's you're either going to make this work or you're not going to make it work. You know, it really is. And I think most people struggle because they just don't even get into the category of like that top half of I'm going to make this work. You know, so they just straight away defeat themselves like, oh no, I can't do that, and give themselves all the reasons why they can't do that. And the people that are successful and do go out there and get it are the people that generally have just taken the risk at the right time, right?
And a great point that you brought up there, your relationship with struggle as well, your relationship with difficult things. You know, we can make it mean or think, oh, that's it, the world's over. Or we can think, you know what, there's something here, there's something I need to learn. There's someone I might need to find with the answer. And I say to people all the time, I was like, you can do hard things, right? Yeah. Okay, you got this. You know, we can all do hard things.
I love the struggle. I love the struggle, man. Like the struggle is where it's at, isn't it? The struggle is where the growth is. Like things are meant to be hard for a reason. Because if they were easy, then, you know, everyone were doing it, right? This is just an old school saying, right? So struggling and finding things difficult is where the magic happens, and it's what separates the people that are going to make it, are going to do something, are going to live in the life of alignment and a purpose and are fulfilled, from people that are just going to be ordered around and just complain about things. So
life there's a weird joy in finding the joy in the struggle. Like when you can reframe it however you want, but to me it's just like a never-ending puzzle. It's like, oh, I don't see it as struggle or good or bad or indifferent anymore. I'm like, that there's just something else to do now, I guess. You know, who do I need to find? What do I need to read? How do I need to think? Who do I need to become? And what's the next piece to the puzzle?
100%.
It's amazing how you can find joy in that. There's like almost a bit of a zen in that, which is cool.
Yeah, I just think, is it the struggle or is it like progression? You know?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
for me, it's like when I feel like I run out of progression in something is when I need something else. And we've got a very similar story in that regard. It's like, you know, we got to the time in our previous company, it's like, well, we can't really go any further here. We're limited. Yeah. You know, we need to take that cap off and like move things around so that we can continue to grow. So yeah, somebody asked me that recently as well. I think it was another barber or another educator, about like kind of why I do what I do. And it's like, well, progression. You know, before I was in the hair industry, I used to cycle. When I got to the end of my talent there, I was like, well, I don't really love this anymore. I don't really know if I love the thing. It's more the progress within the thing, like the personal development that I have within the vehicle that I'm currently in. And it's funny you brought up your partner, because I think me getting with my partner that I'm with now really helped me to see it as well from a different perspective, more of like a conscious lens. I was like, oh fuck, like, yeah, I really got some stuff to look at here. And now I'm at the accountability, because now I can see it. Mirror. Now I can see it, I can't unsee it. And maybe it's just time for something new. But yeah, I hear you on that one too. Like, I love the character that's built within the struggle and trying to figure some stuff out. Because what happens, say, for example, you get to be one of the best in the world at cutting hair, which you are, for men's hair. It's like, what then? You know, we always say to people, what then? You know, and for you doing the online platform and switching your role within like the work that you do is quite exciting. And at the beginning, it's like, I don't know if this is so different. I don't know if this is going to work. We've kind of had that as well, but we're committed to making it work. And because of that, it always is going to work.
Of course. Like I'm at a very interesting position again, because like I found myself being at the top, you know, of educating in men's hair, like globally. You know, I've traveled the world many times and taught many amazing people. What is next? You know, like, I'm just going to do that for another 20 years. Like, that's boring. Like, generally is boring. Like, I couldn't imagine continuing to do that. So that's when, like, you know, I've started to I've just launched my own teams, and I've been training up my educators for my teams who are now teaching that. And also I've started to go back into the world of women's hair and hairdressing again, because that's a whole fucking another challenge, man. Like,
how fun is it?
How fun I love it, man. You know what I mean? And I've like found that I've like reignited the passion for hair again, but in a weird, really strange way. I've just done a full circle. I did start off in women's and men's hair doing hairdressing, and then I entered the men's hair and became an educator and did that for years. And now I've come back round with my brand, and now it is a hair education brand, not just a men's. But the reason why I wanted to do that is because I want to challenge myself and challenge my brand to be in something bigger and better than just being a men's education brand, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just not enough for me, like I needed that next challenge, and I felt like that was the direction I wanted to go in. So that's like where a lot of my time is being spent right now, in training up the other educators to teach for my brand around the world, and just challenging myself within women's hair again. So I'd say like what the education that I teach now is 50-50, for women's and men's hair. Even if we're doing big seminars, there's 50% women, 50% men's models. So it's great. I love it. And I've got like a bit more of like a creative spark back in my blood, and feeling a bit more challenged again, like how many kind of graduated haircuts or whatever can you do, or teach? It's just like, so it's great. I love it. But I do think there's a flip side, especially if you've got a partner, to the whole always looking for that next challenge, which I'm finding hard at the moment to find balance between personal and business life. I kind of wanted to touch on this before we move on, because it's quite a big thing in my life where I am one of these people that does like to like continue to like drive and push myself and test myself and everything, but that also can come at a cost of like not being present when I'm at home. So my partner constantly says to me like, you can't switch off. You're always like trying to drive and be in this next thing and grow this big business, and she's there to support me, and she wants that for me, because what's good for me is what's good for our family, obviously. But at the same time, like, where's the limit and where's the like balance in your life of like switching off? So there's that like one side of being very driven and successful, but also does that start eating into your personal life? And like, how do you switch off from that?
It raises a big question, doesn't it? Why can't you switch off? I'm the same. The big question is, why can't I switch off, and what is it masking?
Yeah.
And that's where the kind of deep story goes.
Deep. Yeah, it is deep.
And that's
deep.
The work that right there is another layer of work to be uncovered, to be worked through. I think the biggest thing there, what I've found in my life, especially from a partner, is support. Like to feel judged in that moment that's a tricky road, because it's already masking something, and then to feel judged for that is very difficult. But if you've got someone that supports you through that, it's like, Charlie, I've noticed this, I'm here for you, but can we work on it? That's the best feeling, because it's like, oh, cool, thank you. You've seen it and you support me. And that's such a beautiful thing as well. It's a massive thing as like a coach and like in education as well. Like, coming at those things with love rather than judgment is massive. We've all got them, of those things, those little pieces in our story which won't allow us to do certain things. And I struggle with that too, like the presence piece. I'll be like, oh, well, I want to do this, I just want to read this book, and it's like 9 p.m. It's like, what am I doing? Like, the issue is am I committed to my learning and my growth? That's not the issue. It's like, what is it masking here?
At least it's not just me then.
No.
Oh no, don't worry.
It's the whole question that, like, Stephen spoke about this at the show we went to see last night, and it's like, are we driven or are we being dragged by something? Like, he brought that kind of question up, and a lot of people who are high achievers in that kind of realm or that space are being more dragged than they are driven. And only in hindsight can we really reflect on these moments and think, oh fuck, maybe I should have been a bit more present here. But the domino effect of everything that we're doing plays a role in freeing us up later. A lot of the stuff that we do now is for our freedom at a later date. You training up the trainers now, you doing all of the stuff that you're doing in your business now frees you up ultimately to have more time in the future. For me personally, I'm very good at patching up the space that I do free up. So like, I don't do clients anymore, but I still somehow work 50 hours a week. But it's in a different capacity. But I would like to think by the time I do have kids that, like, I'll have more of a full-time father role, you know, and things will just be working in the background. But I'm sure just the way that I'm wired, it might not look like that. But at the same time, we always think there's nothing wrong with that. I think sometimes we're kind of sold this idea of like, oh, work-life balance, and we need to have 50% here and 50% there. And it's like, I don't really know if it works like that, especially if we enjoy what we do. Like, it's not like you're at a fucking call center, you know, doing it for somebody else. Like, you're doing it for yourself, for your family.
That's huge, that piece, isn't it? We talk about that a lot, like optimizing for joy in your life. So, you know, because the question gets thrown out, should I be doing this? Should I be doing this? Is it work-life balance? Is it this? It's like, we just say optimize for joy. Like, are you waking up every day and thinking, sweet, I get to do this today? Because if you're in that moment and you're working 10, 12 hours a day and you're happy and you're joyful, okay, cool. And it's not like negatively affecting everything around you. And if that's 2 hours a day, then maybe it has to be 2 hours a day. Like, who knows? I think once we optimize for the joy, it's completely different. And I think yourself and for us, we have very unique paths, because I don't think a lot of people, well, there's probably a huge amount of people that don't really have that feeling of a joyful life. You know, I think I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. If you really walked around the street and said, do you enjoy your days? There's probably a lot of people that just say no. A lot. Yeah. And I think that's where that whole like work-life balance thing, we just call it like harmony or synergy. You know, what's the synergy of your life is different for people like us, because we're carving our own path and we're just putting our own puzzle together, which is really joyful.
I fucking love it. Like, I literally wake up every day and I'm like, I want to work on my brand, my business, not because I need to, because I fucking want to. You know what I mean? Like, that's like a big thing, you know. And there's a lot of business owners in the hair industry that have like gone down the route of like having a shop and stuff, and on like Instagram or whatever, on paper they'll look like they love their stuff, but like they don't enjoy waking up every day and managing their staff, and they don't want to deal with the bullshit, and they don't want to deal with all the admin and the bills, and they don't love their job, and they don't wake up every day loving it, you know. So I think it is interesting, and it is a unique position to be in. But there are also a lot of other people that do love their job in the hair industry, that don't own businesses and don't do this and don't do that, you know. It's very possible to work for someone else or have a fully booked column and absolutely love what you do. And I think what is important to understand is, where do you fit into the industry, and what do you want to focus on, and how can you get to that point of loving what you do every day, you know?
I think a big one as well is like, I've really thought about this a lot. Like, we get people that we work with who, you know, if I really zoom out in their life, I think you'd probably be better off just being an employee, because of what it's going to actually do for you. And that is, zooming out, it depends what meaning you give what you do. And again, what does it serve in your life? So like, I've always said that there's this whole thing like, oh, no one makes money out of hair. But I think there's plenty of money in hair. It just depends do you know what to do with it? You can be an employee and you can do just fine, you know, because let's zoom out with the vehicle. Okay, I want to become financially free or stable. You can do that as an employed barber. You can. You just got to know what to do with it. And there's enough there, and that becomes then the vehicle of that. If we could just get lost in it a little bit. You know, some people are like, oh yeah, the passion takes over. Or, you know, what role is it playing in your life, and what vehicle is it? How are you using the vehicle of hair in your life? Because a lot of people go chuck the toys out of the pram and be like, oh, I'm just going to open my own business. It's like, yeah, but that might not be the vehicle that you need. Yeah, and then you can quickly resent that thing, because banks don't enjoy you for the first 2 years, can't get any money, you're shelling out money because there's all these new overheads you're trying to build up, and like, so many things. I don't envy shop owners, you know, and we help a lot of shop owners at the moment who have kind of set their lives up to live in somebody else's world. It's like, you're just following a blueprint that you think, okay, I've just got good enough at hair, now I'm fully booked, next step is opening a shop, thinking that that's the solve all. But it's not the solve all. Like, it's actually going to give you more problems to solve and add more stress and more worry to your life. And we had this conversation last night. James was over here in the background. We were having a conversation after Stephen's show last night, because he was talking about building big teams and, like, you know, we have to become a recruitment agency and like all of this stuff. And then
Leigh and I hear conflicting opinions then in the coaching groups that we're in about like having a lean team and optimizing for how do we want to live? Do we want to manage that many people? Do we want to actually grow a business that big? It's like, how much do we need at a certain point? It's like, are my needs met? Yeah, cool. Do I get to live how I want to live? Yes. Do I have anybody who tells me what to do? No. Okay, so if I add more to the situation, it's only going to get worse. Like now I almost vomit thinking about doing a fully booked column of clients, because it's like that many people can just buy my time, like, and tell me where to be on those days. I'm like, no, it makes me anxious. I'm like, can't breathe.
It makes me anxious.
I know. I'm like, you can't do anything.
Yeah. I openly say that to my classes though. I'm like, it actually makes me anxious to think of like trying to run a fully booked column. Not that I couldn't do it, just like, why, you know what I mean? It's just, it's feeling, isn't it? It's so strange.
It's the thing though, once you've experienced and seen a different life and a different way of...
Wild how we used to do ourselves that every day.
We have that
part of the process though. Yeah. It's the other side of things is I don't think the three of us can do what we're doing now if it wasn't for doing that. Yeah.
Oh, we can't. And how can we advise people that are doing it without doing it yourself? You always want to take advice from people that have either done what you've done or are doing what you want to do, right? It's like a golden rule. I think it's similar, but
I remember years ago when it must have been that tour you did in Australia when you did the seminar with us area, and I remember someone asked you a question like, do you miss being on the floor or something like that? And you were like, I can't wait to get off the floor. you said it out and that was one of the first times like I'd ever heard that, and I was like,
do you know what it is? I'm a very brutally honest guy, right? And I always have been, and I think that's why people like me. But there are a lot of people out there who teach and stuff, who still run a column, and they'll get asked those questions, and I've seen them on social media, and they'll always say, oh, I can never stop cutting hair. I love my clients like this, and this, and this. And some of that is truth to that. But some of these people are just saying that because they want to sound relatable to their audience, to the people watching them. So they feel like they're still part of like that thing, but they're not. But that's not the truth. Like, why would you want to cut hair all day, every day with all these clients when you don't need to?
It's fear driven. I think. Yeah. It's fear of it all falling apart if they lose their clients, because if the clients overhear it, or if their team overhears it. People don't want to tell the truth to their team either, because it's just like manipulation in a sense. in the most brutally honest way. It's like, well, passion, like it's all about the passion. It's like, well, how passionate could you be after that many years of doing the same thing over and over again?
I love how Mosey talks about it. He's like passion's bullshit. It's like passion's just a thing that gets you going. He's like, what's going to keep you going is the thing in 3, 4, 5 years time, and that comes back to progress. I think the progress is what keeps you going. Just an interesting thing on that as well, like thinking about, becoming like, it's a bit of a dicky word, but like expert in what you do. How many hats can you really wear? If you're on the shop floor, you're an educator, you're doing this,
you're managing,
maybe leading a team, managing, coaching. Like, how many hats can you wear, and how thin are you spreading yourself?
How much can you give to that each individual thing? Yeah,
because that's what I found. In early days when we were educating a lot, I was full time in a shop, and then we'd be doing like a couple of days on a weekend educating, and I just couldn't be 100% for people in either side,
And then we feel ourselves too, like I've felt this over the years. I'm like, I should appreciate the fact that like people want this, so I'll do it. And that's kind of like what's been conditioned into me. But same thing, I've been completely burnt out as well. I had about a year maybe after we did the mentorship program, I went through a phase of like completely bringing myself to like, I had to go away for like 2 months and barely speak to anybody. Even my girlfriend basically was like, I just can't talk to you for like...
Was this why you were still at your previous company?
Yeah. But similar kind of experience. But I was there for about a year before I made that leap. It wasn't until I really felt like this is not going well that we had to make that decision. And it's a shame, isn't it, in the human condition that we have to wait until things get so bad before we make a decision or make a change, because sometimes it's not relatable enough until that moment. It's crazy to think, because now we could all advise somebody. I'm sure you've advised people in your space, and we advise people in our coaching group about like doing certain things, but they have to feel the heat of the fire themselves. They have to kind of get burnt in order to take the lesson, which is kind of sad in a way. But
I think the lesson there is how many times do you get burnt. I think that one big one at the start can be enough sometimes, and we all felt that.
Is it a lesson or a choice, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Because I'm sure a lot of things that we've done in the past, where we look back at now and we talk about these kind of difficult, dark times, we haven't made those same mistakes again now because we've learned from them. But there will be people that repeat those cycles over and over again.
Yeah, because it will pull them back in, right? Like, it depends how deep you've gone in your own story, but sometimes your limiting beliefs and your biases will just pull you back into that place because it's like a comfort zone. Even though, like, on the surface, like, complaining and I don't like it, sometimes there's like a nervous system comfort zone in there. We'll just keep it there. It takes a big bit to break through that. Yeah.
I'm actually trying to break through out. I am breaking out of one cycle right now, which is the travel and stuff. I've been traveling for, like, as you guys know, like probably 10 plus years now as an educator. And there's been, you know, I've gone through like peaks and troughs of like, it's fine and it's great. And then like real difficult times where like I'm not even enjoying the traveling, and it's taken a big hit on my personal life and my relationships and my family back at home. But part of an educator and what we do in our industry, unfortunately, does, for the most part, need to have travel in it. If I stayed in the UK and didn't do any traveling, I'd probably do 50% less education. And you know, you have to look like how much of an impact is that going to make on the growth of your brand and business and exposure and et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, there's so many like positives and negatives to it. But last year was like the last year that I was like, I'm going to travel a lot this year. Which a lot to me is like 2 to 3 trips a month, which is like, it's a lot. It's a lot, you know, different countries. So it's like 3 or 4 countries a month, away from home pretty much every weekend kind of thing. So I've been doing that for like a long time now. And last year I was doing 2 a month. I was in America like 8 times last year, separate times. Obviously separate times if I was there 8 times. But a lot, you know, the reason why I did that was because I used to, before I had kids, I used to go to America for like 2 or 3 weeks, do like a little tour, because you can be away from home a bit more. But now I have kids, I don't want to be away from home that much. I want to be there. So I'd go for like, fly like 16, 18 hours the day before the course, do a 2-day course and fly home the night of the course. So I was in America for 48 hours as well as teaching a 2-day course.
it's a lot, bro.
A lot. And I did that 8 times last year. So, and got to last year and sat down with Tori, my partner, and she was like, yeah, like you're going back into that stage where like we're so distant and you're not here. When you are here, you're not here. You know, you're physically here, but you're mentally not here and present for your kids and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, 2024, I'm going to completely change. And this year I've stuck to 1 trip a month away for 2 or 3 days max. I'm only going to America like twice this year and like really completely like halved my traveling and put a lot more emphasis on the online academy and built the teams. And so I'm really transitioning that. And eventually I don't want to stop traveling. I do like a bit of travel and I think it's important, but I'm really making a big change in like my my life in terms of going through like that. So it's interesting.
It's definitely glamorized, isn't it? You know, I remember for myself watching like the likes of yourself and various other people traveling a lot, and it wasn't until I did it myself, like was it 2022, I think, between just education for us, we did about 30 flights, and then there was some other stuff.
It was more than that.
Yeah,
I counted it up at one stage because I was going to a lot of like coaching stuff as well outside of hair.
Yeah,
and I had like, it was nearly 2 flights a week.
Yeah,
at one point, and that was just around Australia. There's still a lot.
And planes.
Even this time coming to Manchester, like I was only home for like 3 days, and I barely spoke to my partner. And like I'm like, I can't keep this up when I have kids. Like I just can't.
Yeah. And 2022 was that year, and there were some other things that I was doing as well for traveling for. And like last year was where you're at now for me, 23. Every time I got on a plane, I'm like, I just don't want to be on this plane. It was doing something to my nervous system. Yeah. I've come back to a good relationship with it this year. Definitely got it under control. And like you say, planning it better, giving myself the time. And I think, just being off the salon floor helps so much with that as well. I do have the time to recuperate and design my calendar how I want to, give myself the recovery. it's
I look
massive.
back at previous versions of myself, like it started with like the cycling stuff, and I think, how did I do that? And now I'm looking at the floor and I'm like, how did I do that? And then it's looking at the salon floor and the education together.
Yeah.
How did I do that?
Why did I do that?
Yeah, why did I
do that?
Yeah.
And the hats situation is really interesting, because I feel like a lot of what holds people back in general is identity. And like when it comes down to like, okay, am I an educator or am I just a barber, like who's cutting hair on the floor? And trying to do both. I think education is kind of seen as this thing where people are, for the most part, doing it just for some spare change on the weekend, so they can go and buy a Stone Island jacket or something cool, you know.
Is that not why you do it?
Huh?
Is that not why you do it?
I've seen your Stone Island collection.
You know, I sold it all now. I'm burnt out. I had a spiritual awakening, and I burned it all in the fire. But yeah,
different now.
I'm different.
I'm different now.
I sent it back to Stone Island, wherever that is.
A little note in the pocket.
Yeah, and this didn't do it for me. Please have it back. But yeah, like that's what it kind of was, I guess, at the beginning, and it was more of like an ego trip. And like then it's like, okay, I need to start thinking a little bit further in advance, like thinking downstream. And now we're very similar in terms of the way we continue to reshape our business and upgrade the way that we do things, is looking at like, how does life look first, and then reverse engineered around that. So it's almost like we left out this like rope of like, this is how life is, like we've been conditioned for so long, into thinking that things need to be a certain way, and now we're like pulling the rope back in ever so slowly. And like you were saying, transitioning from working these crazy long weeks to like now, it's almost uncomfortable, the little amount of things that happen in my life. Like at one point in time, I remember just that time I had to go away for a few months. I was like, I am just sick of like everything. Like I'm getting that many emails, that many messages, that many this and that. Great, like look, very grateful for it. Not a bad thing. But then at a certain point, I was like, I'm the one who's sending all the messages though. Like what if I just stop sending emails and stop sending messages and just focus on like the real high leverage activities? It's like, okay, let me just see, what do I need? What kind of work do I want to do? And we've distilled it all the way down to like, our hands-on education is only one course. We do a 3-day course because that's like the most impact we feel we can have. You know, the 1-day stuff is a little bit of a flash in the pan. It's just like, come and have a look and get inspired, but doesn't really do anything. But the 3 days we've seen the most change from. And then we do all of our stuff online, and it's like, it serves us anywhere we go. Like I've been living in Bali for 4 months, the last 4 months before coming here, and nothing happened in our business. It grew.
Yeah.
It just grew. Like we're doing better, and everywhere we go, it's like, if I have the iPad with me, I'm good. Like someone just give me an iPad anywhere. And
we laugh about it, don't we? Like our whole company's built on, well, my laptop's broken, the screen's broken, and a dodgy iPad. Like the whole piece is built on that, you know, a broken laptop and a dodgy iPad.
But I think, you know, a really common
Can
thing.
be done.
You could probably run your whole business on a phone.
Yeah,
100%.
Realistically,
Well,
yeah.
look at Gary Vee. Like he reckons most of his stuff's done. He's like, you just need this. Like, yeah.
But that foundational piece, like that we're all kind of speaking about now, that we've ascended from in a sense, for our own journeys, is so crucial and fundamental, because we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing now without having done all those long hours on the floor. They were the trench hours. Like they were the hours that we honed our skills, honed our crafts, built our brand. Like brand is such a massive thing. Like,
Why do you think that maybe we and other people in the hair industry have made it out the trench, so to speak? Like, what's the difference between you and someone else that you used to work with that's still doing a full clientele in the shop? Like, why have you got to this point and they are still doing what they're still doing, and maybe they're unhappy? Like, what's the difference?
I think there's a lot of things
I've got a word.
to say.
Well, you've already touched on it. Some of it's identity and some of it's humility, I think.
And just being curious enough to like question, like, what if? Like, I remember throughout lockdown just looking, distinctly remember this moment. I looked across the bedroom of Hannah at one stage, because we were just locked up in the house for weeks, And it was coming to the time when we were going back into the shop. It was like, oh, we're opening up like in 2 days. And I was like, I don't feel good about it. I just don't feel good about going back. And sometimes it wasn't until stepping out of the like fishbowl, in a sense, to like be like, oh, that's a bit fucking weird, isn't it? Doing life like that. So I just asked the question, like, what if I don't go back? And that opened up so many kind of like possibilities in my mind. It was the time that I was doing the mentorship program with you, because we were in that house at the time, and I was thinking, what if I just don't go back? And then I started exploring ways in which I could do that. Whereas the people who are still in that position, and I can think of people who still are there, still are behind the chair, and sometimes it comes up in my stories and I'm like, wow, like I've done so much and changed so much as a human. And like that person had kind of, in a sense, equal opportunity to do the same. But ultimately it comes down to belief and having the ability to be able to take a risk. I think one thing as well is building my personal brand, like throughout the years, like showing up every day, regardless of like what was going on, you know. And I think that's something that you smashed as well early on. You know, I remember seeing you in Australia and seeing you at different shows around the world, and you were doing the thing, but you were documenting it all the time as well. Like I remember being out for, you know, we do the thing at Brother Wolf, for example, years ago. And you cut Leigh's hair, actually.
I remember.
Yeah.
Iconic picture of that.
I remember after the workshop, we were out for food, and you were posting some stuff in your stories. And I was thinking, yeah, like, it makes sense now as to like why.
Of course.
Yeah, well, you were sharing it, you're building your brand, you're building your reputation. So when it comes to time to take that risk, it's not as big of a risk, because it's like, I have an audience. Like, you've built an audience. And it's kind of similar to like somebody building a clientele in a shop and then leaving and doing their own shop.
It's exactly the same.
It's exactly the same, but just your clients are on Instagram, or they're on whatever platform is your biggest kind of conversion platform.
Yeah.
But yeah, what would you say is the biggest difference if you had to answer that question?
I think for me, a word that pops up in so many different scenarios, which is what like is the difference between good and great, or success and unsuccessful, or whatever you deem to be that to be is discipline. Because people always talk about like motivation. It's like, oh yeah, I'm so motivated to like get up in the morning and do this routine, or I'm so motivated to make my business work or my brand grow, and I'm so motivated to this. And so many people like look at motivation, and motivation is important, but the difference between someone actually really doing what they set out to do is the discipline in getting up and doing it every single day. You know, whether that's a really hard workout in the morning, or whether that's like whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you're trying to achieve, the discipline is the main thing, I think, that separates most people. And I think that's where most people fail and struggle, you know.
I love that, and it's Stephen said it as well last night, and something that I really truly believe in is like it's all of those small things that seem small, but when you make that promise to yourself, you better keep that promise, because the moment you break a promise of a small thing, it's the thing he says, is like, small things are easy to do, but they're also easy not to do. And the moment you start to break those promises with yourself, you lose trust with yourself. All of a sudden you don't even trust yourself to do what you say you want to do, you know. So then it becomes this like self-fulfilling thing where it's just hard to do anything. And yeah, something that, you know, I also see is like the meaning people give cutting hair. Like what does it serve in your life? Again, I'm really big on that, like in my own life, what meaning do I give things? And I love something that Ram Dass said, you know, he said, use your occupation or your work as your path to enlightenment. And somebody asked me this question a few years ago. We did like a little video series with somebody, and they were like, what's the biggest thing you've learned out of hair? And I was like, well, it's been the biggest personal development journey you could ever go on. It's like a personal development roller coaster. Why? Because you're just in front of like 10 to 15 new people a day. That'll challenge you, you know, whereas some people don't have that. They might have like 2 people they're in front of every day, and they're the same people every day. It might be their boss and their co-worker, maybe. And it depends what meaning you give it, and just I think for the people that make it out and the people that don't, the key thing that you brought up there is like, for those that aren't making it out but are still complaining about it, that's the conundrum that you need to address. If you're still there and you're optimized for joy, good on you. Like, if you're happy just cutting hair on the floor the day you die, great. You've won the game. But if you're complaining about it, which a lot of people do, then we need to address some stuff. And firstly is I just go straight to identity. Like, are you over-identifying as, I'm the great hairdresser? Is, your greatest passion can be your greatest downfall too, which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super interesting, isn't it? But everyone's on their own journey too, and I think that's something that I've really broadened my perspective on over the years, being around different coaches and in different coaching groups outside of the hair industry. It's given me a much broader perspective on like business in general, and like why people do it, and like what it's all for at the end of the day. Because sometimes we can get so consumed in the thing, it's like nothing else exists other than what's going on in the hair industry. But then, I've been in business coaching groups with people who own stuff that it's like, how are you even passionate about that? Like, that is just such a weird vehicle to be in. I'm trying to think of an example, but there was one particular guy who owned like a vape shop or something. I'm like, how are you passionate about that? Like, you can't like be doing good for the world by selling vapes to people. And but it was a moment in time where that was his vehicle to like get him to the next place where he wanted to go. But maybe, these people just haven't seen better yet. If you've traveled the world and you've been around it and you've reached the heights, sometimes it takes us to reach those heights before we can start to explore the depths of like, okay, I've been there, I've seen it all, I've done it all. What now? Like, what's next? We say to people in our coaching group, it's like, we do the big stuff so that we can do the little stuff. It's so counterproductive in a sense, because it's like, we're doing all of this stuff so we can do nothing. But we can already do nothing. It's kind of like, but we can already just
the great paradox,
like do nothing.
Right? Yeah.
But we just want to do nothing more comfortably. It's like, but then it's like exploring human potential as well, right? Like, you have this great platform. I'm sure, you've experienced more than us in terms of like having such a big audience and opportunities being thrown at you left, right, and center. But knowing why we do it is like really important, I feel.
I think that's something we've both been digging into a lot over the years, and certainly I have, probably for like the last 5 to 10 years. But the question that I have for you is like, what does hair mean to you, like now at this point in your life and your world? Like, where does it fit, and what meaning do you give it?
Good question. I don't think hair means the same thing to me as it did when I first started, right? I'm a very different person to when I first started. But the first couple of years that I got into hair, it's all about trying to learn how to do it, everything the best, right? Whether that's cutting or styling or women's or men's, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And you're just so focused on becoming better at cutting hair. So for a long time it is that. And I think you can get kind of stuck in that as well, like for a long time, which is fine. But for me, the emphasis of what I did change when I started teaching. So it's going back to what Owen said a minute ago about, the transition from cutting to educating, and how people can do that and how people struggle to do that and wearing different hats. The whole conversation that we're having now is quite kind of come together nicely, because what we do as hairstylists generally is get told to build our clientele up till we're fully booked, and that's the goal. Right, and then your bosses tell you can go on holidays and enjoy life and X, Y, and Z, and that's kind of like the roof, which is not the case. Like, there's a lot more to past the roof if you can break through that. And education and being an educator is one of those avenues that you could take to not do that anymore, I guess. And the emphasis of serving clients when you're cutting hair is what we're told and what we build up to for such a long time, for so many years, that when you become an educator and you want to transition into education, you then have to forget about your clients, forget about everything that you've always done, and retrain your mind to then serve the hairstylist, the person that you used to stand next to and cut hair next to. So your whole purpose changes from serving the clients, building up your clientele with the public, to serving the hairstylist and building up your clientele within the hair industry. So it's a completely different and separate thing. And the reason why some educators and companies are very successful is because they understand what they're serving and who they're serving compared to the hairstylist that isn't serving that person. So that's why you see some educators like pop up on the scene. They're kind of like this hot property for like a year or so, do a couple of seminars. You know, they're this like new educator that everyone wants to be educated by. And then 2 years later, you know, you haven't seen them for a long time as an educator and they're just cutting hair in their shop again, right? I've seen it, cycles of people over and over and over and over again, right? I think what is important for like what I do is longevity and to be sustainable as a education brand and as an educator. Like there's so many reasons why Sassoon, for example, are still one of the best education systems in hair in the world, because they have such a strong core fundamental meaning of why they do hair, how they do hair, and that's why so many people all over the world want to learn from them, right? And that obviously all came from Fidel Sassoon and his theory and his vision. So it's like such a strong emphasis on like what they want to do. And other great education brands also do that very well. So it's establishing like what I want to get out of Hair in Motion, what the core belief system is at Hair in Motion, and how that vehicle is going to get me to like live the life that I want day to day and long-term future. So I think my role within hair changed a lot from when I was a hairstylist to becoming an educator. But again, I've taken another transition from being an educator now more in towards being like a mentor kind of role. I would like to say I don't even know what I class myself as, or if I even need to class myself as anything. You know, I don't really like to name tag anything. Even like down to the simple process of like, I get asked a question like, do you see yourself, like, what would you call yourself, a barber or a hairstylist? And it's like, what does it matter? I can cut hair and I teach people. Like I can cut, you know, I don't really like name tags in any sense. But if we're looking at like what I do in my role and how I see hair, is coming back to your original question, is I probably cut less hair than I've ever cut in my life. You know, I probably do like, sometimes I don't even cut one haircut a week. Like I don't cut hair, but I love cutting hair when I cut hair. So it's not that I don't love what I do, and it's not I don't love cutting hair or I've fallen out of love with hair. It's that my purpose and my meaning doesn't involve me cutting hair anymore. It mean, you know, the only time I cut hair is either in front of camera where I'm being filmed or on stage in front of hundreds of people. Like, so when I cut hair, it's pressurized. Like I'm being scrutinized, I'm being watched. Like any single thing that I do when I cut hair, like it has to be perfect. I don't cut hair in any other circumstance or way. So when I cut hair, like it has a big purpose and a big meaning to it. And I love that. I love the pressure. So when I do hair, it's great. But when I don't do hair, it's all the other things that I'm doing, whether it's managing my team or teaching, even if it's not about hair, or whatever it is that I'm doing, or editing on the computer. I still do a lot of the editing work for my online platform stuff because I enjoy it. It's like a side of the business that I do enjoy still doing. So yeah, like what hair means to me now is less relevant to what my purpose is. And my purpose is so much more than like just doing hair. But when I do hair, it takes me back to like my core feeling of like why I started this journey and what I really do love to do still. You know, I don't know if I even answered your question fully there, but I tried to take you on a little bit of a journey from like as a hairstylist to an educator, so a mentor, and I've gone through these transitions in my career and in my life where hair is still at the core and center of what I do, but it's not as important for me anymore as it was.
I love it. I love hearing that, all different perspectives of that, and that's what I've had to do in my life. Is like, it's my vehicle, and it's your vehicle too. The hair world is our vehicle to fulfill our purpose. And once we understand our purpose, and it can change, it can move, it can adjust, but once we understand it, then we get to use our occupation as our vehicle to get that done. And that's how I see it, and that's why I really started to struggle in the shop, because I think as we grow as well, how we see the thing changes. And so there's a great psychologist called Flynn Skidmore, and he says, with most things we do in life, it's our best attempt at love, safety, and belonging. Like, we use things as a vehicle to get love, safety, and belonging. You can break that most things down that way. And once I realized that was why a lot of people get their hair done. I was like, wow. And in psychology, what you can really do is, like, the question becomes, is that a sustainable way to get love, safety, and belonging? Because can you access love, safety, and belonging before you come in? The answer is often yes. So then once I realized that I was delivering that to people, I was like, well, that doesn't really line up with my purpose anymore. So that it started to get hard then. And that's, I think, what really blossomed my coaching style, my education style. And I love the way that, like, Rick Rubin talks about this stuff about, like, you know, art versus commerce and art versus, like, commission pieces. I see what we do in, like, for me, doing it in that capacity in the barbershop or the salon is basically just pumping out commission pieces all day long, because I take a request, I kind of put it through my little thing and then give it back out again. Whereas where we're going with, like, the whole, even how we, like, do our consultations and all that kind of stuff, it stays away from, like, trying to make it like commission pieces and commerce pieces, bringing it back to, like, pieces of art again that we can co-create with our client. That feels fucking awesome. Like, it's full of empowerment. The client feels great because they're uplifted, more energy, more empowerment. We get to put pieces of work out into a world that we enjoy doing. But I got to a point in my career, I was like, whoa, that's really not what it is. So, and then I had to, that was a hard point in my career. There was a moment where I could have quit. I could have just been like, so there was a point where I thought, I don't think I'm going to do this anymore. You know, but I've been doing hair nearly 20 years now. I was just like, that's probably enough. You know, it's probably enough, I guess. And yeah, so then it was like changing the meaning of what I was using it for. And I love that you brought purpose into it, because that, now I can start to see the fork in the road. Oh, do I want to train? I can coach. I can unlimit some beliefs. I can change, you know, and it's really cool that way. And that's what it kind of means in our world now as well, which is cool.
Yeah, like our 3-day course now is more around, like, the mindset stuff more than the hair. It's like we've simplified the hair stuff so much that it's like, this is what you really need if you want to do almost any haircut, pretty much any haircut. But really, it's less about what's happening with your hands. It's more about, like, what's going on in between the two ears, and then how is this in context to how you're going to use it in your life. Because we said that at the Barber Bash actually last week. So I went on and did just basic skin fade, a little bit of texture on top, bread and butter, you know, just the stuff that I would do in the barbershop all the time. Didn't try and push the boundaries.
McCarthy special, isn't it?
Yeah, I didn't try and push the boundaries too much. And I said, guys, why did I do this haircut? And, like, nobody could really answer the question, but, like, it was for dramatic effect. I was like, because it works and it pays the bills. This is the bread and butter. This is what's going to get you money. Like, you can do all the nice stuff and the fancy stuff. It's nice to know, but, like, where in context is this going to fit into your life? And Nathan, actually, from Not Just, I did a live with him a few weeks back. I seen you did a live with him about a week before, actually.
Yeah.
And he asked me the question. He was like, so what do you think's missing from education? And I said, context. Like, how is it fitting into people's lives? And I approached that from, like, when I'm getting educated on certain things, I'm always trying to put it through my filter. Like, when we were at Stephen's show last night, everything he was saying, I was like, okay, but, like, how does this fit into my life? And I'm, like, writing notes on, like, where does this fit in my world? And it takes it away from being, like, entertainment, rather than, like, you know, we're selling it as education. But for most people who come to education, it's entertainment. It's, like, inspiring, entertaining. It's nice to watch, but it's just a nice idea. You know, I'm sure people will watch our online platforms and think, oh, that's nice that Charlie's doing that haircut. But, like, they'll never actually go and apply it in their lives. It's like, no, guys, like, this is some stuff you can use. So for us now, like, when you land on our 3-day course landing page, it's like, this is not a hair course. It's a course for people who do hair. And, like, that's kind of, like, the direction we're going in.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's more about, like, the person who comes in rather than what we teach them. It's like, who is it that you have to become rather than what it is you do? Because you can do something and I don't know if you understand it or not. Like, so, like, that's why we chose the 3 days, because we come back, day 2 and day 3 are the most powerful. because it's like, did it work? We ask for feedback, like we ask questions, we really open it up as a conversation, and then we might have to change our approach if it's not working. And that fulfills my purpose more so now. It's like, okay, how can we get more out of these humans and unlimit them, essentially? Make them realize there's so many more things you can do if you want, other than cut hair on the floor, because 90% of people who come into our world complain about their current situation, but don't do anything about it. So it's,
the context piece is so important, isn't it? I think especially like with what we do in-person stuff is also really important, because like, you know, I love the online side of things. I love the business model. I love what we do, but it's also so important that we give it context as well. And sometimes we can only show that to people in person to deepen the conversation. And something that I've seen in the hair world over my career is we watch a lot more hair in isolation now. So like, you know, a quick Instagram video might come up, 30, 45 seconds, whatever. Oh, this, and you're just watching the hands in isolation. Doesn't have a whole ton of context. And that's why we see people just copying that stuff and trying to force it on heads, rather than stepping back and really thinking about, well, what's the context behind this? And that is, again, I say it in every class. I'm like, can you turn a clipper on? Yep. Can you cut a straight line with a scissor? Yep, you could do it all then. It's just about how you contextualize it in here. And that's the basis of what we do. It's more about how are you thinking about this rather than what other thing in isolation do I need to do?
I always tell people in my courses that it's not, when you go to education, it's not about the haircut that you're doing or you're getting taught or the educator's doing. It's about the information that's getting given behind the haircut that you're going to learn from, you know? And it's really important to highlight that, because there's a lot of education out there now. Like, education is oversaturated in hair, men's hair, women's hair, but most of the education is just copy and paste from one person to another, and there's no meaning behind it. The amount of people that come on my courses that have never done courses with me before, all over the world, say, I went and did this course of blah, 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 and I didn't learn anything. They literally couldn't explain to me what they were doing. They just did it and said, this is how I do it. And it's bonkers to me, because for me, education is really all about how much information your student can take away from you. You know, it doesn't matter about what haircut you do. I say that to them. You probably won't remember in a year's time what haircut I did on this course, but you will remember what you learned and how that made you feel and how that impacted your journey. And that is the truth, because that's the information, that's the feedback that I get from students that come back to me year after year after year. And what I pride our brand's education on, and mine personally, is how relatable I can be to the everyday person. You know, I am not doing education to stand up on a pedestal and think I'm better than anyone else. I'm simply passing on information that I've been passed on myself in a way that I think is suitable and relatable, the way that I enjoy passing on information that will hopefully help someone. And that is like truth, you know? And I think because of the oversaturation of education and people that want to be educators or want to do education, real education is sometimes difficult to find, and unfortunately it can put so many people off. You know, I don't know if you've ever had students on your course that be like, I did this course like 3 years ago and they didn't teach me anything, and I spent $1,000 or whatever on it, and I'm hesitant to doing more education because I think every educator out there is just bullshit. That's not the case. There's some amazing education out there, but there's also some awful education out there. And because of social media and stuff, which is so amazing in so many ways, it's also horrible in so many ways too, right? You know, it doesn't show the whole picture. It doesn't show the context of what people are doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it. So you can get hooked onto the new hot educator this year, go onto their Look and Learn seminar, go and watch him cut hair for an hour or two, him not teaching one thing about cutting hair or the mindset behind it, and then you'll be put off education for so many years down the line. And that's the world and the industry that we're living in right now. So it's tough.
And I say that all the time. There's so much education out there. It's almost like no excuse not to be amazing, because there's that much. But the caveat is
quality, isn't it?
The quality does it have. There's so much that what it tells me is there's not a lot of context. Because if there was, everybody would be amazing. And we've had some, like, it's funny that I think some people are put off a little bit by our course because we advertise it in such a simple way. And it's like, guys, that the simplicity is what solves the complexity. More complexity doesn't solve more complexity. And it's like, don't sleep on it, because it will literally unlock all the doors for you. And that's really cool. And then, like you say, you double that up with people who have had a little bit of a bad experience with maybe, I don't know, a flex educator or someone who's just complicating the shit out of it. It does put them off. And then they get confused about what they're even looking for. So,
well, a good educator, in my opinion, will remove themselves from the situation when it comes to delivering it, because it's not about us. You know, it's really not. Like, so people ask me the question all the time now, like, do you get nervous before you're doing education? It's like, not really, because it's not my education. It's the person's education that's at the course. And we say that to our 3-day course, the people who are there. Well, on day one, we start the course off and be like, all right, guys, so whose course is this? Like, because it's not ours. We're just here to like facilitate whatever you guys need. So if there's anything left unsaid, if you didn't say anything in the pre-assessment forms, now is your time to do it. Speak now or forever hold your peace, you know? And otherwise, we're not going to be able to deliver it in the context that you guys need right now. And we can only really bring out the best information when we understand where their biggest limits are. And we get to know that over 3 days. But on day one, they're still kind of closed off. Yeah. They're not like really opened up to us. And the more relatable I think we can be as educators, the more people are going to open up, and then the more we can help them.
100%. The best comment that I like to get now after every single course is, I can't believe how simple and easy you make it sound. Not because we're doing anything, like, and I'm talking like about square layers and stuff here. That for me is like jackpot. That's when I know I've done my job, and that's what I like to hear now. Not, oh my God, that was an amazing haircut. Oh my God, do you know what I mean? Like, it's not about that.
But we say in our class, well, I don't even care what it looks like. Like, people like trying so hard to get it right. Owen says it all the time. He's like, guys, it's not even about the result right now. I just really want you to understand what is like how this happened. Like, why is this happening? And we'll watch people mess it up on purpose. We won't jump in and be like, whoa. We'll just watch them mess it up. And then again, we've got more context. So you see what he did on that side, you see what he did on that side. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
We've got to the point where it's like, do you want to see me do it differently on the other side? Because it's like, this isn't about the end result. It's about, this is an exercise, and we're teaching you some stuff within the exercise that you can go and apply to certain different things in your everyday world. It's not about like how good I am. Like, I don't care about like how good they think I am. Like I said that at the barber bash as well. Like, I don't care if you think this haircut's shit.
I bet he came across as a really angry Irish guy on stage.
Is he all right?
Why is he so angry?
Yeah, you can get away.
What did you say? You said, you all might think I'm full of shit. But he said that on stage.
Like, that's wrong. I think I'm full of shit. Go on. Whatever you think.
Keep going.
You're right. But you see, when you're Irish, you can get away with a lot more.
Yeah, you can.
You can say a lot of things and get away with it just because I'm Irish. But it's true. Like, I'm not there to impress them. You know, like I've done that part. Like, I've been through that part of the journey where I was caught up in the Stone Island world and the flex and the this and that. That's done. Like, I've done that piece. So now it's like, well, the more impressive thing is how much of an impression can I make on their journey. It's like, okay, if they're relating things back to our course consistently and they go away and they're able to use that stuff in an everyday setting to essentially free themselves up a little bit more so they can focus on the other things that matter. Because at a certain point, another haircut's not going to do it. You know, I said that again at the barber bash. I was like, guys, doing another haircut, like, there's 100 fucking haircuts here today. Like, what's another nice fade going to do for you? Like, nothing. Like, you need to look at some other skills, maybe some other ways and how this can be relatable to your life. Because why do we do it? We do it to make money. Like, if you took the money out of it, like, how many people would really do it? And we asked that question a lot, and, you know, people, oh, the passion. But I was like, yeah, but passion will die pretty quickly if there's no money involved. Like, at the end of the day,
if you can't live, you know.
Yeah, you can't support your basic needs. It's not to say that, like, we need to be greedy and become fucking billionaires from people's disempowerment, or like they're, you know, the way that they feel about themselves. But basic needs, and I'm speaking to a lot of people at the moment in Ireland, in the UK, who are, you know, you look at their lives on Instagram and think that it's brilliant, but then behind the scenes, they're opening up to us about like how much of a challenge it is for them and how hard it is, and like they don't have money and they can't afford
rent and can't, yeah.
And like that to me just doesn't seem right. Like someone spending their whole week working, all the hours that they have, pouring it into this cup, and there's just holes everywhere and all the water's falling out of the cup. It's like, wow, like something else needs to happen here. And there's plenty of people delivering education, doing great haircuts, like, and have throughout the years, but it's just not what I'm really interested in anymore. I'm more interested in the psychology, the human condition. How can we help these people live better lives? Let's make the haircut stuff so automatic. And like, you know, my journey's been really interesting because I'm not doing it that long, but I feel like I've always had access to great education. And that was with you guys, with the guys at Area. I've always surrounded myself with people who were subject matter experts in a sense, and I very quickly discard certain things that I see. You know, like you were saying, there's plenty of educators online, even online now, online platforms, different ways of doing things, different approaches. But quite early days, like what you guys were teaching at Menspire at the time, stuck. And like certain things that I learned from yourself, from Leigh, from other people, the information just sticks. So like when new information comes in now, I'm like, well, I don't really need to know that, because I kind of have everything that, like, there's only so many outcomes that can happen here. Like, why do I need any more than that? So now I just focus on other skills, like brand, marketing, planning, organization, how a business actually works, how this is in context to how I want my life to go. Do I want to have a house? How is that going to happen? Because learning how to do another thing with hair isn't going to do that for me either. Like, I need some extra energy and resources in other areas of my life. So
I've got a question for you. Because there is such a oversaturation of information, right? Like, there's no reason for you not to be good at cutting hair now. So many different ways to do things, so many different online academies, etc., etc. What do you think makes the education companies that are thriving right now, who are like growing and becoming like the next big things in the hair industry, compared to like the people that aren't succeeding? Let's say there's, you know, maybe the education companies that aren't really known or aren't really heard of or aren't like growing and aren't.
What's the main difference?
What's the main difference? Yeah, like what is it about the companies that are doing so well right now? What are they doing differently to the other ones?
I think it's who is behind them. I think it's the brand.
Purpose.
The purpose, but also like the results that person has got. Like, you know, there's a lot of credibility in like what you've done because of you've traveled the world, you've educated this many people, you clearly know how to do hair well. You know, you have the brand that is behind you, so that comes with trust, and then because of the trust, people are more likely to invest. That's the way I look at it.
Have you heard of Seth Godin? You know Seth Godin, the marketer? Yeah. His latest book, This Is Marketing, is fantastic. Explains this really well, and the kind of condition of where we're at just in modern society. And I'd love to say it was the purpose of the companies that was driving it, but I don't think it's that deep. I think it's a little more shallow than that. I think brand and status comes into it a lot. So how Seth Godin explains it is like status will blind a lot of people. There's always status games at play. It blinds people, you know, because it's very hard to
titles and
discern. Yeah, it's very hard to discern, like, is this good, is this not? It's got status, so I guess I'll just do it, you know. That to me is kind of probably what's growing people, because it's very hard to know until you go to a course like what are these people about, what is, you know, is it sticky, is it not?
Yeah.
Did I learn anything, did I not? You know, I think right now it's easy to blind people with brand and status, very easy. Yeah, because you know it's we've never seen marketing this way before. We've never had multiple free platforms to tell people what we have ever. And Hormozi says the same thing. He's like, sub $1 million companies is less about how good it is, more about how much you tell people about it, because it's just wired into people's psychology. Now, I'm not saying that's good or right, but it's the psychology. At a certain point, status plays such a role in how people make decisions that That's just it. Someone with loads of followers, like Owen says all the time, he's like, I might just try and just become a DJ or something just to see how far I can push the status thing. It's like, well, people just believe it at a certain point, you know, and that's kind of where, that's a kind of a condition of our modern culture is that.
It's like the more times you get told a lie, you believe it's the truth, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So that's where we're at. And I agree with you that there are some apps, there are some people who are phenomenal at cutting hair will never see the light of day because of the noise in how things are marketed, how things are seen, the stats games that play. Stats games right now are just on absolute hyperdrive. Like everyone's fighting for the light. So I think that's got a lot to do with it.
How do you remove yourself from that fight of like, obviously you guys are doing what you want to do and you love it and you're growing a successful business, but you're also in contention with other education brands in the hair industry as well. So how do you get seen without trying to be too, hey, I'm over here, like come and do our education, like we're better than these, and you know what I mean? Like,
so can I go first?
Yeah.
I think for me, because I don't have a whole lot of status compared to a lot of big name educators, for me, I realize that it's a tool that I need to use. So I see it as a tool. You know, I think there's a fine line between, hey, come and look at me, for the validation of people just looking at you, rather than here's a tool that I can use to apply to the vehicle that I have to fulfill my purpose. That's how I see it. And for me right now, I just have to be loud. That's it. You know, it's a Gary Vee thing. It's like louder, more volume. And
but I think there's a caveat in that too, if I may add. It's important about, like, for me anyway, and in our company, it's important what we're loud about.
Yes.
We're not just loud for the sake of being loud.
Yeah.
And like, it's not just loud for being loud for the trends. You know, it's like, does it still align with our message? And can we be loud for a long period of time?
Yeah.
So like what you brought up about longevity and sustainability. I had this conversation with somebody at the Barber Bash, but I was like, this game is so fucking easy. Like, all you got to do really is be like maybe 10% better than most people, and or like louder than most people, more consistent than most people. And it's like, what game are we playing? Are we playing the long game, or are we playing the short game? Because if I was so concerned about like it blowing up tomorrow, I'd be loud for maybe misaligned reasons. Whereas now it's like, I know that I can keep what we're doing right now. You know, I could probably keep that up forever. Like, it's just part of like what I do. It's like who I am.
I think another thing as well is just not getting too emotional about it as well. Like, I think when people are like, it's annoying, always popping up, hey, look at me, blah, blah, it's like, yeah, that's getting emotional about it, and it depends where these kind of platforms and visibility mechanisms fit in your life. No one's holding a gun to your head to look at social media all day, every day. No one's making you do that. That's up to you. I love what Gary Vee says. He says social media doesn't shape culture, it reveals culture. It reveals behavior. So if you're just, oh God, there's so many barbers, I don't want to see this, that's just revealing where you're not free. You don't have to use it. And so for me, I've had to reestablish that in my own life and realize this is my business tool. And it's free. It's my free business marketing tool. Why would I not be loud on it? Because it hasn't been like this before. It's been very hard to get this much reach. It come at a cost. And you needed status, you needed a lot of money, you needed to know the people that could put it in the places you needed it to be. So that's how I look at it. I'm not so worried anymore about being loud. I used to be. I used to be that guy, but that's because I was just emotional about it. I was making it mean something, you know, and that was because I was factoring it into like it was part of my life, rather than looking at it as a tool that I have to use, again, to apply to my vehicle to fulfill my purpose. And that's how I've kind of eradicated that feeling of like being too loud, you know. And I feel like for me in my position, I kind of have to be right now. But like Owen said, when it's soaked in purpose and soaked in mission and like heartfelt, purpose-driven, aligned mission, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, you know. I'd rather see that than just a load of shit, you know. And yeah, that's just how I look at it. And I think that the cream always rises to the top. Like the quality will always rise to the top. You know, it's like content right now. We're in this like hype game of content, and we had a guy. We do skills webinars in our coaching group every month, and one of my old clients was the lead creative director at Google in Australia. So he designed all the big ads for like Cadbury and Revlon and Amazon, massive, right? He's got like $3 to $5 million budgets and the deep nuts and bolts of like what makes a great advert. And he said Cadbury can make an advert and it'll last them 5 years. It was like someone on TikTok make a thing and it'll last them 24 to 48 hours. It was like there's a big difference. And so that's how I love looking at that stuff. When it's steeped in purpose and mission, I feel like it's a different thing. The cream will always rise to the top. Same with education. The great will always outlast. You know, we will see pop. We'll see that. But the great stuff will always, I think it will always remain. Like you brought up Sassoon. I love Sassoon. Why does it remain? Because it's great. It's just, there's challenge that, you know, it's like, yeah.
I think like a lot of people over the years would have taken a lot of inspiration from yourself and a lot of inspiration from people like Josh, and then just tried to be that, but it doesn't work because they're not you or they're not Josh.
Well, I think we've seen that over and over again, right? So yeah.
Right, it's like it's been done. So then it's like, okay, well, it's great to take inspiration from it, but it's not great to copy it and like just do this exact same thing.
It's like, not a good artist copy, great artist steal, right? It's like if you copy, and then what does one of our coaches say? It's like wearing someone else's underpants. Copy their business, it's like wearing someone else's underpants, right?
You wake up,
it's a bit weird.
Like,
well, it's a bit weird.
This isn't right. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't fit.
This ain't right. It's not. They don't fit. Just realised. But then, you know, but you can steal the strategy and the process and that kind of stuff, which is great.
Exactly. What would your answer to that question be?
Yeah, I think everything that you said in terms of having status and being around the block for a long time has value, right? But at the same time, if you understand the tools that are out there to use and use them in the right way and have a message and believe in the message that you're giving, then I think you will be heard. And I think the problem that most people have is that they don't even understand the message that they're giving, maybe because they're copying from other people, or they don't fully believe it themselves. So you might catch a couple of people in, you know, like come into your stuff because they've like heard a copy and repeat thing. But once you actually go to these in-person education days that we're talking about, from this famous Instagram barber or whatever, and you actually see them in person delivering this haircut or, you know, lack of information or knowledge that they've got on what they're doing, it's so easy to see through these people and through these things that it's really about whoever has the belief in themselves and believes in the message that they're given, I think will stand the time, to be honest with you. Like we said about Sassoon, they believe in what they're doing, and anyone that works there has to cut hair in a certain way and believe in what they're doing, and they believe in the message, and that's why it continues to be such a strong education brand. So yeah,
I feel like what that alludes to as well is like patience as well. Sometimes if you really truly believe in what you're doing, it's like who can just strap in and be patient and to be consistent, you know. And again, I know I quote Hormozy a lot, but he says the same thing. It was like, you know, persistence will outperform skill at a certain point. You know, it's like if you truly believe, a lot of the time it's been studied who can just show up day in, day out and just be patient.
Discipline again, isn't it?
Yeah. You're a great example of that, right? Like how long have you been at this now? You know, it's a long time.
Yeah. And like how many tutorials do you have on the platform now?
Lost count.
No, we've nearly got 170 now.
So there you go. That's discipline, right? Like it's how many people have 170 videos on an online education hair platform? Very few. Yeah. And sometimes we have to do that with our clients as well. You know, like we had a particular client of ours last week. She was going to make a decision on something, and it's like, well, why don't you just wait for a few weeks? Like, it doesn't have to be right now. Like, I know you want the result now, but like making the decision too early could blow the business up. It's like, just wait. Like, what game are you playing? Like, you just have forever. You have as long as you're going to live.
Horizon,
just expand the time horizon, strap in for the journey, and just allow time to do its thing.
I think you can tell who's in it for the long run or the short-term success, right?
Yeah. Yep. And I think, yeah, you know, here, I think a lot comes from me in like listening to other industries and people in other walks of life. And, you know, you hear the stories of people who've like tried their 8th, 9th, 10th business, and then they had the one that was successful, and then they were the overnight success, you know. And I feel like that is kind of like our approach is like we're here for the long run. Like it's not a flash in the pan, let's make money this weekend. Everything's riding on this course.
Yeah. I think it's the same for yourself as well, isn't it, Charlie? Like I'm your business isn't the same business as when you started. There's iterations, isn't there? You know, in your vehicle, there's been iterations to it. Oh, I'm gonna veer this way a little bit, this way a little bit, and you're driving the car, but it can go.
Mate, from day one, a small story on that is I launched my business in end of March 2020, right? Which was 3 weeks before the world technically got shut down. So what a great time to launch a business, you know? On paper, I tell this story a lot in a lot of my seminars because it's very interesting, you know. I just left a big, great company that I've done a lot with, and I was getting paid pretty well, you know, compared to the average barber for what I was doing. I was in a safe zone. Obviously decided to go and launch my own company, new venture, never been a business owner in that sense before. Going out on my own for the first year or two, I wanted to focus on myself. And then obviously I had about 6 months worth of education booked out in the first week, boom, because of the personal branding and stuff that I did beforehand. I was like, wow, this is easy. I'm in business, baby. This is it. Like, yeah, I was like, show me the money. I was like, counting all this money I was about to make. I did all these amazing, I had all these trips booked. I was like, this is the best decision I've ever made in my life. 3 weeks later, obviously everything got shut down. Everything got cancelled. So I was like, fuck. You know, I kind of like, oh dear. Just got a new lease on a studio in Hackney, East London. And in 2 to 3 months time, my first baby was due as well. So I was like, wow, like, what am I going to do? You know, what am I going to do? Which led me on to like having to pivot super quick. You know, I was always had the idea of doing an online academy. Even a year before I left Men's Bar, it was something that I was trying to push through that, which just didn't happen for whatever reason. So I was like, this is the time. I've got my own space. I can order a hell load of mannequins. I can lock myself in my studio and I can just learn how to put this online thing together, which was the launch of Circle Membership. So I spent 3 months filming myself, learning how to be a cameraman whilst I'm cutting hair at the same time, learning how to edit, built my own website, like all in 3 months, like learned all these new skills, and then launched the academy in June 2020, 3 months later. So rather than a time of like rolling over and just accepting or like defeating, I thought, no, this is a time for growth. This is a time for excelling. This is a time for change. And then, yeah, like obviously that was the birth of the Circle Membership. And I look back at it now and like, it looks like a piece of shit compared to what it is now. But fuck, like everything starts somewhere, right? And now obviously I paid like professionals to like build me out a website and an app, and like it's all, you know, it's comparing, like I would say, I compare it from like a Ford Fiesta or something that I built to a Porsche or a Lamborghini now, with like the vehicle that it moves in. So I'm very proud of myself for what I did when I did it, when a lot of people just were happy just to watch TV for 3 hours, you know, for 3 months at home and get the money that they were going to get from their government. But like that's not me, you know? So I look at what happened and where it came from and what I could have accepted defeat and just thought, Josh, mate, I can't have my job back, or, you know, it could have been any of those instances, but I was like, no, I'm going to make this work and I'm going to do it. And right now what I can do is my online academy, and I did it. So it is what it is, man. You know, the rest is history. So
things as, is this going to be my excuse or my reason? You know, like it's just going to be like my opportunity to like go backwards or forwards. And I'm sure, like, you know, I'd love to ask you the question to like, this is going to help me in the future as well. But like, I'm sure having your first baby on the way was a massive motivator for that as well. And like being a dad, I'm sure has changed everything for you. How did that kind of play into those times?
Yeah, I think if you ask anyone that's had a kid, for the most part, they say it's changed their life, right? For the better, and they become better people for it. And a lot of people say that they're more motivated to do better in life for their kids. And I think that's great. And I think that's fantastic. And I think that's the truth for the most part. But to be honest with you guys, I was that fucking motivated before my kid that it didn't matter whether I had a kid or not. I would still be this successful now and still be doing what I'm doing now if I didn't have any kids. Probably, maybe even more so, because I would have had more time to put into it. So your purpose kind of changes in terms of like, you know, day to day and being around and present for your kids. So you do change as a person. But my motivation and like everything like that, I don't think it's changed for me personally. Either way, bro, like it was going to happen and this is going to be successful what I'm doing, because bottom line, like I said before, I believe in myself. And that's all that matters. I don't care if you don't believe in me. I don't care if anyone else believes in me. I literally believe in myself, and that's powerful.
You can feel that from people as well. You know, when you meet certain people in the journey, I'm sure, you know, you would have met thousands of barbers, and I'm the same. I've met thousands of people, but only a few really like cut through as like that person like believes in what they're going to do. Like they're going to do it. You can see it, man. That person's going to do it.
I'm sure you've watched people on stage before at like Hair Expo and all that, and you know, listen to some people, even people that you've looked up to and think, God, they've been doing it for 20 years. They're very experienced. They work for these big companies. You're listening to them talk and you're like, if I was a young head, but maybe 6-7 years ago when I was in the early stage of my career, I would look at them and be like, oh, they're amazing and this and that and that. And I'm not doubting their skills, but then now you know who you are, and you know what you know now, and you've done what you've done now, and you listen to those same people that you used to look up to, they're full of shit. Some of them are, not all of them. I'm not saying everyone is, but or not full of shit always, then they don't know really what they're talking about. They're just winging it.
It's a veneer.
And they don't believe in themselves.
It's an act.
It's funny.
It's like an act.
It's a persona. It's a character.
Absolutely. The backbone isn't behind it, you know. Somebody said to us at the Barber Bash at the weekend, it was one of the best compliments that I've nearly ever had, I reckon, in my career in the hair space so far. But somebody said to us after, and he's kind of like quite a well-known barber now. He's getting a lot of attention online. Yes. And he came up to us and was like, you know what, like of all the people I listened to on the stage today, like you're the only guys that I actually believed what you were saying. Like when you were saying it, there was a level of like conviction in it. There was a level of confidence in it. And it's like, yeah, because this is the stuff we speak about all the time. Like if Leigh and I are having a conversation on the phone, this is what we're speaking about. You know, the same stuff we bring to the stage. It's not like a thing that we just do when we get up there and make it up. Like it's not that.
It's not an act.
No, I'm not trying to like coerce you guys into like liking me or believing me or thinking I'm something special. It's like, this is literally how we talk all the time.
Do you know what?
Any day of the week.
That resonates so much because like so many people ask, like you said about it earlier, like do you get nervous about cutting hair? And like I get asked all the time, like, you know, before I go on stage in front of like thousands of people sometimes or big events, like, do you get nervous? I'm like, no, like I don't get nervous. Like you get butterflies and stuff because like you care about what you're doing, and this is a great moment in what you're doing, so of course you care and you get that feeling inside of you, but it's not a nerve of like you don't know what you're doing. And people say like, do you plan and prepare what you're going to say? And I'm like, no, because it's just what I'm going to say. Like there is no notes, there is no like anything. I literally just go up on stage and just whatever comes out is what's meant to come out, because it's what I believe in and it's what I say. You know what I mean? And there's too much like of this, like maybe, you know, you might have seen it at the events that you've done and stuff, just people that really don't believe what they're doing and what they're saying, and they're just like forcing out words and like things to try and maybe sound impressive or look good, and it's just too easy to see, man. Like once you see past it, you know. Yeah, one of the most developmental things that I've done in the last 2-3 years is now going on stage with no hair. Like we go on and we just don't cut hair at all. Like if Gary we pretty much asked Gary at the Barber Bash, can we go on without hair? And he's like, oh, well, I don't know, because he was putting us on with other people. So it's like, what are we going to do when they're speaking? Like, so we kind of had to have the haircuts there. Yeah. But like in Amsterdam, when we're going there in a few weeks, no hair. Mm-hmm. There'll be slides, like we'll have some slides and stuff, but no hair. And that's when we really have to kind of step into that. Mm-hmm. But people would be surprised as to the lack of preparation, you know, we do. We're prepared because it's just how we live. It's who we are. Exactly the same as yourself. It's like
we're just going to say what we always say and what is needed to be said.
Because you're living the life of what you're doing, of the purpose. You know what I mean?
I don't speak about stuff I don't believe.
It's natural. Yeah, that's what I mean. It's so
yeah,
interesting.
It's super interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the time, yeah, people will think that that's how it has to be.
Someone asked us in the course, didn't they? They said, is it exhausting being you guys and thinking like this all the time? I'm like, no, this is how I am all the time. I'm just like this.
Yeah.
I'm always this weird. Yep.
Yeah, it's beautiful because I felt going into the Barber Bash this time and going on stage and being in front of like an adverse crowd who might have a response to like the message we're trying to put across. I remember leaving my home in Ireland and speaking to my mother and my partner about it, and they're asking me about it, and I was like, yeah, nothing's really riding on this. Like, it's like 1,000 people that are going to show up in total. I don't know how many people are going to watch the show. What's the worst thing that can happen? They don't resonate with the message, and that's it. Like, I come back here and we crack on.
Right. Yeah.
There's nothing else going to happen. We're still going to Manchester next week, and we're doing all the rest of the stuff that we're going to do, and that's just what it is. But there's some comfort in that too, isn't there? Just no matter where you go now, and no matter what stages you get on, it's like I just believe in myself so much, and I have such a foundational knowledge that like I can just pull from whatever I need to pull from in that moment, and I'll always make it work. There's something about like backing yourself in those moments that that's the thing that I really want to try and transfer to people, is like that belief, and like eliminating the limiting beliefs and bringing them into that point of, it's like, guys, just be the person that you say you are at all times, and you can't go wrong. And I felt that from even Stephen last night, watching him on stage. It's like, yeah, like there's no surprises. It's like, that's just, I can imagine if I met him on the street, that's just how he'd be. And that's a really strong brand, I feel, because whenever you meet that person, that's just who they are at all times.
Well, there's no easier brand to be than you, right? That's one of the most obvious and simple pieces.
Most people struggle with
exactly,
that.
And one of our coaches gave that a piece of advice. We were listening to a call, and they were like, how should I build my brand? And he was like, mate, the easiest brand to be is you. Like, why would you waste any more energy trying to be anyone else? It's like, oh, it's so obvious, but so true. Like, and then when you get paid just for being you, well, yeah, that's a pretty good life, you know.
We had a girl that in Bali. There was a girl who's a naturopath, and she was like, I don't know what to do. Should I build this business brand, or should I build a personal brand? And she was having a conversation with Hannah, and I was just kind of overhearing it, and I just like put my hand up. I was like, ask for permission first. I was like, personal brand, work on that first, because when the context changes, like, we remain, you know. So for you, like, the context changes, but you still remain. So then you can build Hair in Motion. If the context changes, Hair in Motion goes away tomorrow, you're still Charlie Gray. You can still do something else.
I can still do what I'm doing without Hair in Motion.
Exactly.
That's the beautiful thing about it. Hair in Motion is an addition, an extension of me. But it's not my all end of all.
Same thing with 101, and I think that's the big lesson we learned in the kind of breaking off of Area Academy. You know, I had so much tied up in that for so long, where it was like, this is who I am and this is what I'm about, and shedding that was kind of beautiful in a way, because 2 weeks later I realized none of the thing itself didn't actually matter. It was like the skills and the knowledge and the expertise that I built over the years, and who I am actually withstands all of it. Yeah. And yeah, it's a beautiful place to be, isn't it?
Here we are.
And here we are.
In Bolton.
In Bolton.
In Bolton. It's actually really, it's very nice. It's been a lovely experience here. Yeah. I really enjoyed it, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've appreciated the conversation, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it went pretty deep. It's pretty...
I'm sure I could talk for hours and hours more, but I would get a bollocking at home. So
let's
we'll have to do a part 2 another time.
We'll do part 2 another time for sure. And
because we were still around for a while.
It was great to be able to do this in person. I think it brings a different level of depth. You know, if we were doing it online, this wouldn't maybe have gone where it needed to go. And I feel like, you know, for both platforms, for your platform and for our platform, it was pretty
super valuable.
It was pretty evened out. You know, but I think
super valuable.
What we're trying to do with the podcast now is take it away from like interview style, because nobody needs to hear Charlie's story again. You know, like there's about 5 podcasts online with your story. You know, you can read the Barber Evil magazine.
I definitely don't want to hear my story again. I'm sorry.
I don't even want to tell it.
Yeah.
Charlie, don't make me do that.
You know, when you get that question now, though, innit? And you're like, starts off with a big huff. You're like, really? You know, in your head, you're just like, you actually want me to start. Like,
I was listening to a podcast the other
right?
day, and they were even getting sick of the question of like, if you could go back, what would you tell your 21-year-old self? And he was like, I'm even hating that question now, because it's just been asked so many times, right? Yeah.
It's more like, let's just have a conversation about like what's relevant now.
Let's give the context,
like,
right? Yeah.
And I think that's what we got today. So
100%.
thank you for your time.
No worries.
Appreciate it, bro.
It's been amazing.
I really need a piss as well, so I think
that's a wrap.